Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another man and machine product demonstration. My name is Cameron McKenzie. I'm an applications engineer here at Man and Machine, and today we're going to be looking at the Autodesk factory design utilities. So the factory design utilities is a product that spreads between a few different products within the Autodesk realm. It is available inside of the product design and manufacturing collection, and therefore we get to use this inside of a few of the tools that we've got inside of the product design manufacturing collection, or the different programs that we have inside of the collection itself. So we can use this product inside of Inventor, inside of AutoCAD Mechanical, as well as AutoCAD Architectural if we needed to. We've also got some functionality inside of Navisworks, and with the link between Revit and Inventor, we could essentially be bringing in some Revit models into our factory design utilities to make sure that we've got a good collaboration between our factory design as a whole and the buildings that we're wanting to fabricate and create our designs and layouts inside of. So the concept behind factory design utilities is that we essentially take the layout, we take a floor plan of an existing building or a building we're designing, and we start to populate those with very simple layouts of the overall factory itself, and including rather all of the different machinery that's involved in the manufacturing process, as well as all of the different routes that would be required between each of those, whether it be being transported across from one side of the factory to the other, or using machinery or using conveyor belts. We've got the ability to plot all of these out very nice and neatly inside of this tool, and then get to understand where we would start to see some clashes, some collisions with the building itself. Again, this is either at the concept stage of the building itself, or whether we're moving into a new building and need to start to create the layout for the factory itself. So as I said at the beginning, this product, the extension itself, is available for various products within the Product Design Manufacturing Collection. And today we're going to be focusing inside of AutoCAD and Inventor and see how the data can begin to synchronize between the two of them. So I'm going to start off inside of AutoCAD using AutoCAD Mechanical. And you can see I've already got a bit of a layout configured for this with a fairly basic factory layout. So we've got an entry point where our raw material or semi-raw material comes into our factory, whether it be pre-made components or whether they be just basic stock. Comes into our factory over here through a sorter that then gets pushed onto a roller conveyor belt. And we've got the ability to then add these in. And you can see this is just all designed inside of the 2D environment. Where the factory design utilities comes into its own is when we are designing inside of the 2D environment, really keeping it nice and simple in the layouts that we create. We then can automatically synchronize this from our AutoCAD environment into an Inventor environment. So if I open up Inventor on the other window over here, you can see that exact same layout that we've created has blocks that are essentially linked with 3D geometry, and it automatically brings in that layout into Inventor for us. And we've got the ability to synchronize between these two models. So if I rotate my model around over here, you'll see each of those individual items have been created as 3D elements as well. We've still got the 2D layout below there, but it's being converted inside of Inventor with the 3D layout. And with Inventor's integration now and its continual improvements with that integration between Inventor and Revit, we've got the ability to start looking at the collaboration between Inventor and Revit models, and we can start to look at proper layouts inside of the Inventor 3D landscape within factory design utilities, and how those layouts essentially collaborate with Revit models themselves. One of my colleagues, Chris England, did a video recently about the collaboration between the Revit models and Inventor models, So if that is something that would interest you, I do recommend you check that out on our YouTube channel. But as I said earlier, today we're going to be focusing on the connection between Inventor and AutoCAD and how those two can synchronize between each other. So if I go back into my AutoCAD environment over here, we've got the ability in here to start adding certain assets into our factory layout. So using our asset browser here on the side of our panel, which we could easily come in and grab using our palettes, we can grab our asset browser if that wasn't already active as a palette. And once we've got that available, you can see we've got a whole library of assets that are available to us, and all these really are blocks from a AutoCAD perspective that represent the individual components or individual assets that we want to place inside of our factory. So from our list over here, we've got the ability to grab either placeholders, which are very primitive shapes really. So if you're wanting to sort of eyeball certain locations for individual items, we can drop our placeholders here with the primitive shapes. We've also got the ability to grab some building utilities if we want to add some piping or electrical fittings or ducts in here. We've got the ability to grab those from inside of the building utilities. We've then also got the ability to grab some conveyors, and we've got various types of conveyors that we can come in and grab here. I've just dropped a few rollers in here, but you can see the various other types that we've got available to us. And essentially from here, it's a fairly simple process of just grabbing the type that we want. We've got different connector types as well. So we've got a Y merge roller going to the left or right. We've also got an X merge roller conveyor available to us there. We've got spirals, we've got inclined rollers, spirals going left and right, and a few other options available to us. And really, placing these down is very simple. So we can come in and grab this straight roller conveyor from here, find the location we want to drop it to. So I can just essentially drag and drop it into my drawing. I can then come in and specify my insertion plate much in the same way as I would with blocks. Inside of AutoCAD, I've got the ability to rotate it to the correct alignment, and then I can essentially just drop it straight in there. If I'm placing multiple down, all I really need to do is hover over a connector point and it automatically snaps those two together for me. So I'm essentially just adding all of those onto each other at the end there. And those are when we're wanting to place individual ones down. So when we go in, we've got the ability to grab those there. We've also got the ability for most of these to be able to add in a roller conveyor chain, or each of the respective ones. We've got the ability to grab and place down a chain of the conveyors themselves. So if I had to select roller conveyor chain over here, again dragging it into my environment, and then I'm placing an insertion point, and I'm essentially just drawing a line on which I want to create my my conveyor. So just going around, placing 4 points along there, right click, hit enter. It's then going to go through and think about that for a little bit and eventually create that design for me when I hit save the next time around. And it's essentially just going to go and populate that environment in. Once we do a quick update of assets, we can go and push that through. At least once we go through with the Inventor Sync, it'll begin to populate that that conveyor in for us. Other options we've got available to us as well. So if we go a little bit further down, we've got the ability to add some robots in. So we've got some robots based on certain manufacturers or vendors, and we've also got some basic. We've got a 3-axis, 7-axis robot that we can essentially again just drag and drop in. Now the way AutoCAD comes in, and I suppose throughout the entire factory design utilities, the way they come in and save space on our local machines, rather than having all of these assets loaded in, they do load some of the more frequently used ones. So you will have noticed that in our conveyor, in the roller over here, we've got all of these particular items local to our machine. They don't have a little circle next to them. However, if I have to have a look at these ones over here, especially the robots and a few of the other assets, they do have a little circle, a little dot next to them, just indicating that these aren't local to my machine. If I wanted to get them local, all I really need to do on here is right click on the asset that I want, and I can just download the asset. All of the files that I have, or all of the components or assets that I want to have local, will appear with a little green dot next to them rather than a little gray dot. So we could essentially grab any one of these items from this list. These are some of the items I've placed recently inside of this particular document, and we can drop them directly in. And the functionality that we have where those endpoints snap onto each other isn't unique just to the conveyors. There are a few other items as well that when we place them into our assembly or into our drawing over here, we will have a snap point that's available to the particular components. If I move my pallet stacker over here down to near the bottom of the guide over here, or rather let me just place a new one down for the first time. When we do start to place these items in, we then get a little grip available to us. If I remember where the pallet is located, I believe it's under material handling, pallet, and we should have a pallet stacker over there. So if I drag and place this over here, you'll notice that we've got little green nodes at the end of each of these components. If we drag those nodes near each other, they automatically snap onto each other very nice and neatly, so we can quickly place those items in, and you know that they're aligned correctly as we place those in. And that same process is happening between each of the individual conveyor systems and a few other components as we start to add those in. So if there are certain items that do need to be connected to each other, that's one of the ways they do that. From here, we've got a few different options for adding other elements into our design. So rather tweaking the items that we have inside of our design. So with the factory properties that appear on here, these are different to the normal properties that we would have inside of AutoCAD, although they're in a similar format. If I select this particular item over here, we've got our factory properties down at the bottom, and these contain all of the dimensions of this particular component that can be altered. So again, we've got in our palettes drop down, we've got the ability to grab our factory properties if that wasn't on your list over there, if it wasn't available as one of the palettes on your screen when you open up for the first time. But we've got the ability in here to come in and change some of the properties of this particular component. So the first one we've got is the ability to adjust the gap between the feet, so the feet gap over there. We've also got the ability to change the height of the conveyor belt itself, or we can come in and grab the length of the component or the block and change that value in here. So if I wanted a slightly longer conveyor belt, I could come in or conveyor itself, we can come in and bump up that value to 4,000, making it 4 meters long. It'll take a few seconds just to think about that, but once it's done, you'll see the update happen on screen. There we go. And once we've got that set, we can essentially just save the file very quickly just to make sure that we're keeping the data up to date, or the save of the file itself up to date nice and neatly there. We've got a few options that we can use inside here that you can see obviously change the various configuration of all of the individual items or individual blocks essentially from here. Once we're happy with the layout, once we've added the components that we want to add in, if we wanted to go in and add any other items in, perhaps we wanted, let's see, maybe a recycling shredder, we can drag and place that in over there, again changing the angle of it. We've got the ability to drag and drop any of these items in. We've even got the ability to come in and another instance of the little grips that appear on each of these individual items. So we've got our trailer over here. Between these two are our trailers, and we've got a tugger that essentially takes these around the environment. I can come in and grab another trailer, drop it into our environment, and you see how it automatically snaps to the end of the existing ones over there. Once that relationship has been created between each of the individual components inside of AutoCAD, if I just move a single item from there. So say, for example, I move this tugger a little bit further along. Notice how all of the other components or other blocks that are linked together move together, which really helps when you are moving items around and trying to tweak the positioning essentially of all of the individual blocks and your layout as a whole. It makes it a lot easier to move those about. Once we're happy with the layout of our environment over here, or our factory, we can then go and synchronize this with Inventor. So in our cross-product workflows, we've got the ability to synchronize with Inventor or open in Inventor. Because I've already got Inventor open, it's just going to do a synchronization for me here. You can see we've also got the ability to open or synchronize in Navisworks at the same time. So if I select that over here, you can see it's going to automatically do the synchronization in the background. And I should be able to just open up Inventor. It'll have a little think about that for a few seconds. But once that's done with its synchronization, let me just pop back to AutoCAD to make sure that everything's okay. It just wants me to save, so that's fine. I can then hop back into Inventor. You'll notice now it's generating that layout that I was talking about earlier. It's a little bit off or without outside of the boundaries of our current factory, but you can see how it's generating all of these individual components from the drawings that we've set up, essentially from the blocks that we've set up inside of AutoCAD. It's moving the trailer and the tugger, and it'll just keep going about that for a few seconds. Once it's happy with that, this little dialog box will pop off. And there we go. It's synchronized all of those nice and neatly and given us the correct components here. It's even given us the longer conveyor over here as well. If I select this conveyor, we should have the ability in our properties over here in our factory asset preview, or our factory properties rather. If we select that component, you can see we've got the same look and feel to our palette over here. So if we select individual components, it's going to give us the properties of each of these components. So we can also make these tweaks in the 3D environment as well. So it's not just limited to the 2D environment. In fact, you could have one person doing the design inside of Inventor and another person doing it inside of AutoCAD, each making the different tweaks that are required for the different environments, essentially, as you would expect to work. So we're not limited to just leaving this as an individual user, but we can use this as a collaboration platform as well. One thing to point out very quickly as well, though, is when I created that bespoke layout with that chain, you'll notice that some of the individual components have highlighted in red. Those will be individual components that aren't the standard size that our normal conveyor would be. So it does highlight the ones that would be slightly shorter. If we have certain corners that aren't a complete 90-degree angle, it will also highlight those red as our roller curves around certain corners. If it, again, isn't a full 90-degree angle, which is the recommended or the default rather layout of the component itself, they will highlight just to show that they are a slightly different size and just to be aware of those individual items. But now, once we've got this item in and our layout in the Inventor environment, we can then start to make use of all of the features that Inventor gives us access to natively. So some of them would be the ability to now create 3D views, obviously, inside of Inventor of the components or of our environment as a whole, of our factory as a whole. So we can add those views into a drawing view if we wanted to. If we wanted an isometric view of our entire layout, we've now got the ability, as you can see, going straight from a 2D drawing inside of AutoCAD to synchronizing that inside of Inventor and going to a straight 3D view. Any changes we make in the 2D environment will then be reflected inside of the 3D environment, and therefore our 3D drawings, our isometric views, and any other views that we want to create of our component or of our factory can automatically then be brought across from the 2D environment inside of AutoCAD. But we can also, from inside here, add some assets in as well. So you can see we've got the same asset browser available to us inside of Inventor, and this is a palette, so we could dock this off to the side if we wanted to. We could dock it just below our model browser or just the side of the model browser. So we've got the ability in here to make use of the asset browser once more. If I had to come in and expand this, we've got the ability again to go through the exact same assets that we have inside of AutoCAD. So if I had a look in here let's go back to the conveyor and have a look at the roller conveyor. We struggle to find this one. Let me just see if it's there. There it is quickly. We could come in if we wanted to and add the roller conveyors in from here as well. So you can see dragging and dropping it in. We've got the grips available to us now still. So depending on the angle and location that we want for our particular component, we've got the ability to come in and have those snap in our 3D environment as well. So really, again, just depends on your preference as to which environment you're more comfortable in. We've got a lot of users that'll be more comfortable in the 2D environment, and we've got the 2D layout available to us. Or we've got the ability to come and add those in from here, and you can see how nice and neatly it snaps onto those individual grips, which are the same ones that are essentially showing up inside of AutoCAD as well. Just a little escape, and that will then cancel that tool off, but that works the same for all of the other tools. So if I had to just drag this off here so we can see that menu nice and cleanly, we've got some search results in here. We've got favorites if we wanted to favorite certain items, but let's say, for example, we wanted to go in and grab some material handling assets and perhaps another palette or so. We've got the palette stacker, which is that one that's available there. If I again show you the same process using the same palette stacker, dragging it into the Inventor workspace, you can see how it's giving me those snap points once more. So I could then just place it in using that. It takes a little longer to place those in, but now it's automatically giving us the scaling compared to the conveyor belt itself as well. Once we're happy with this, we can then open in AutoCAD or synchronize to AutoCAD. Since the file is already open, it'll ask us to save the file, which we can easily do from here. It's then updating the layout, and we've now got that open inside of AutoCAD. And just make sure it's synchronizing. Let's go one more time inside of Inventor. Make sure that it's pushing those updates through. Let's do it the other way around. See if we can get that relationship working again. I'll close this file down very quickly. I'm not going to save any changes to it quickly, and just make sure that we're pushing from Inventor instead. Again, just take a few seconds just to have that synchronize, but we've got the ability then to make the changes on either side if we wanted to, and push the changes onto the other product that we're essentially using as part of our design process. So a lot of the time we won't necessarily be having both products open at the same time. You're synchronizing to a central file, but we can have that open if we wanted to at each of those individual points along the way. Awesome, so that's come in and updated that for us very neatly over there. So yeah, those are some of the tools that we've got available to us. What we can also do if we wanted to is we could start to plan out our work environment. So if we wanted to start routing the way different products went, so we've got 2 different products inside of our factory, or 2 that will be worked on inside of this manufacturing chain, then we can start to route out the different tools that will be used along the process for our particular products. So we can come into our material flows panel over here. and actually start to add a new product into our workflow. So we would just call this one, we can leave it called product 1 for now, and we can come in and add a second product, product 2. Once we've got our products configured, we can start to add different stations along the process to ensure that we're working out the best workflows essentially for all of our individual products along the web. So we've got the ability to come in and add a station. We could then select an item to add it to our station. So I'm going to use this one as our initial sorter or our initial selector. We can then select or add a connector point, so where we're going to be connecting this to inside of our overall workflow. I'm just going to find that end point over there, or that midpoint essentially there. You can see how it adds a little node for me, and I've got the name of the component here. I can rename this to call it the initial selector or sorter maybe. We've then got the ability to come in and add another station. So this is just a little pusher sorter that's on here that will essentially push our items onto the correct conveyors. So in this case, it'll just ignore any that need to go straight forward and push any that do need to be on the second route onto that particular one. So we'll add this as a station over here, and we'll just call this the secondary sorter. And then it's just a case of adding in any more that we might want to add along the process. Again, we need to add a connector for each of those, so I'll just add a connector point over there. And we can just keep adding these items in. And I can call this the milling station. Clean out that text field. And we could come in and add as many stations into this process as we want to, if we want to keep track of all of those. Once we've got our stations configured, we can then start to route using those stations. So you'll notice that the routing option is now available once we've selected we've created products and a station to work with. So using my routing over here, it wants me to then select a product that I want to add the routing to. So I'm going to select product 1. And then I can come in and select the stations that I want to add my routing to. So I'm going to select station 1, which is my initial station, station 2, which is the secondary station, and then station 3 for now is the milling station. I can then right click enter to confirm, and it will then create that route in here for me. So I've got product 1, whatever the product name is, we've got the ability to name that product, and any updates we make to the product name then obviously reflects inside of our job. We've then got the different stations that is then configured along using the manufacturing processes from here. And we could then, as I say, just create different processes for each individual product and essentially lay out our design from here. So adding a bit more intelligence to just the single 2D model. From here, we could then add in some machine information as well. So if we wanted to add in different wattage for each individual machine, we could come in and add those in here as well. And any transportation options that we wanted between those. And once we've got all of those set in here, we could essentially, using our material flow dropdown, go and either import or export the data that's formatted from this particular setup into the various formats that we wanted to, and we could also generate a report from here for each of those individual products essentially. The other benefit we have when working between these is we've got the ability in here to actually start creating our own components or our own assets inside of AutoCAD or inside of Inventor. So because I generally prefer working inside of Inventor, I'm just going to switch over to Inventor very quickly and show you the process inside them, even though it's a very similar process between those two. So in our factory assets panel, we've got the ability in here to create an asset. We can either come in and model it as a part, we can model it as an assembly, or we could import a DWG solid or import a model in here. So we could either make the model ourselves inside of Inventor as a new part, we could model it as an assembly, or we could import the DWG solids. I've already got a part configured, so I'm just going to go and import a model, and this should hopefully take me to the right location. And you can see I've got a shelf file available to me here. I'm just going to grab the solid geometry that's inside of this particular component, open that up over here, and we can see that that has been created in this view. We've got the ability at this point to add in a landing surface. So if there's a particular surface that you wanted to connect to your environment in, we've got the ability to come in and set the landing surface from inside here. This one's already got it configured with the ground plane, but essentially it's just a case of selecting the surface that you want connected to your environment. We can come in and define connector points as well. So if we were to have it connected to, for example, a conveyor belt or any of the other connectable assets, we could come in and define a connector point and choose location, whether it be a midpoint on a surface, whether it be an edge. We've got the ability to come in and grab those as connectors inside here. If there are any properties that you want to bring across, we've got the ability to grab those in here and place them into this. And these are pretty much just the eye properties from inside of Inventor that can be added inside here as well. And then it also would want us to configure a 2D sketch that's going to be used as part of this component or part of this asset that will then be represented inside of our AutoCAD environment. So we could come in and grab a 2D sketch. We could either generate one from this particular model, or we could import a sketch from AutoCAD if we've already got one configured. I've got one configured right here at the bottom of the screen, but I could essentially just import a sketch from here. Grab a DWG that I have saved for this particular one. You can see I've got my shelf DWG. Import that in, and we could essentially come in and align our sketch to the model to make sure that they've got the correct representation between the two of them. We've also got the ability in here to start adding variations of this. So as you saw earlier, we've got certain components that can change in their sizing, whether it be the height, whether it be the width, whether it be the number of feet, for instance. We've got the ability to come in and set variants from inside here, where we could come in and grab any of the parameters inside of our part. So if we had created this file with variations in their parameters, or we could essentially retrospectively add those in to our set just by ensuring that these are key parameters. So if we wanted to change those, we'd essentially go into our parameters panel, whether we're using it from our panel over here or whether we're using it from our quick access toolbar. If I just drag this on screen over here, you can see that I've got various parameters in here and they're each named, but the ones that have the key column ticked, those are the ones that tend to come through for those. So if we tick the key column along each of the parameters rather, that we want to bring into our design, those will then come in when we grab our asset variants, and we could essentially grab them from this list over here. You can see each of those are there. And we can come in and grab different variations of that. So we can come in and give them each variation a name, change any of the configurations that we want, whether we want to change the shelf height, width, depth, whether the number of shelves change between each of those, and then what the gap is between each of those. And that's just the default configuration I have for this one. But you can imagine adding any of your own custom ones inside of that. Once we've got that all configured, we've got the ability then to publish the asset from here. So I can go in and publish asset. This one we want to be saved, so that's fine. We can just hit yes. And it should then ask us to give it a name. I've already got one called shelf that I had a look at earlier. So I'll just call this one shelves just to differentiate between the two. You can see the asset type will be either a standard part, a pit, or a platform. We've got the ability to choose the thumbnail where this particular item is located, whether we want to just save it right in the user assets, or whether we want to just save this into Vault or in the cloud, or add another location, essentially add another folder in this particular location. I'm happy just to save it at top level user assets for now. Any other options we want, whether we want to publish this as a 2D asset, what we're using for the sketch itself, which is the 2D plan view, which is that same sketch that we've imported inside here, and any other options we want, including bill of materials if we needed to. If I just hit OK on that now, it'll save that now into this setup. Wait for it to run through that generation. Once it's been saved and generated, I can essentially just close this down, and we should see that in our asset browser, right near the bottom, we have our user assets, and we've got the shelf that I created earlier, and we've got shelves that I created a few seconds ago. I can just drag it and drop it into my environment, perhaps just next to these crates over here. And we should then see that appear on the ground over there, and it should have its sketch associated to it as well. I didn't keep that there, did I? Yep, it's there. Perfect. So now that we've got that in there, we could then essentially go through the same process with synchronizing to AutoCAD, and that would then be pushed back to AutoCAD. One of the other benefits we have to this, especially working inside of Inventor, is because Inventor is aware of the components and assemblies and parts that are inside of a overall assembly. We've got our factory layout assembly over here that we're currently using. Inventor's then able to create a bill of materials for every single component that's inside of our factory assembly. So if I had to go into my bill of materials over here, just grab it from the other screen once more, you can see that every single individual part or assembly that's inside of this factory design is now listed inside of a bill of materials. And this is a great way to then track and assess each of the individual components that are available in here. And it follows the normal bill of material structuring. So if we wanted to set these at different levels, we can come in and set different levels for each of these items, including if we wanted to have estimated costs of each of the individual items, we would be able to edit those from inside of the properties for each of the individual assets. We can see how many of each item we need. We've got a quick description of each of those, and whether we want a structured or parts only list, we've got the ability to grab that from inside there. And as I said earlier, we've then got the ability, if we wanted to right click on here and go and create a drawing of our component. So if I just grab this one over here, just want to grab the drawing of that factory layout over there. So this is the AutoCAD DWG that we've got available to us as well. If I go back to Inventor very quickly and just cancel out of this one, I want to create a new one rather than opening. I clicked on open rather than create. Just wait a few seconds for that just to think about it, and it's closed down. Fun. Let me close that down and just do a quick open in Inventor synchronization. It's going to have lost the new information that I popped in over there, but we'll just leave that as is for a few seconds. And wait for Inventor just to reopen very quickly. It should open straight into that file for us though, so it should save us a bit of time during that process. It has just opened up on my other screen. Let me just drag that across there very quickly. Once it lets me. But I hope you can see that during this process, it's very easy and simple process, really. They've done a really great job with the synchronization between the two products, and it's the same or similar, at least, between Inventor and AutoCAD, as well as Navisworks then essentially from there. So once you've got your layout configured in one of the programs, we can essentially just synchronize this and push it across all of the different platforms as well. So that's just loaded up on my other screen. Let me just grab it and place it over here. There we go. Again, apologies, the other portion didn't come in, but that's just down to not being able to, the work that we had in Inventor unfortunately was lost. But if I go in and create a drawing view from here rather than opening the drawing, I can quickly go and create a normal DWG from here. And using the drawing view options that we all are used to, we can come in and create an isometric view of our layout. We could also come in and add a base view if we wanted to, of, say for example, the top down view of our environment, our factory. I could also come in and tweak the size of this isometric view if I wanted a little larger. I've got the ability, using the bill of materials as well, to come in and create a parts list of either one of these two views. If it's been enabled, there we go. And we can see all of the individual items that are inside of that in a nice clean parts list on the side over there. So really great functionality. You can see how quick it is to go from AutoCAD into Inventor and then be able to create this. So even if you are just working inside of AutoCAD to create the layouts and then pushing that into Inventor just to get to the 3D model of all of the individual components and a nice and, dare I say it, cleaner layout and view of the layout, as well as a whole bill of materials of the product. We've got the ability to do that inside of the Inventor environment. Great, so I hope that's been beneficial to you. If you have any questions regarding any of this or would like to see a bit more, please feel free to get in contact with us. Other than that, thank you very much for your time today, and I shall see you guys again next time. Thank you very much. Bye.